Hi guys, Chris here for Drums Bonedo. Welcome back to a new video. With the Dixon Little Roomer I have an extraordinary compact set to test today. Have fun! The idea of equipping a drum kit with an ultra shallow bass drum is nothing new. The first kit back then was the Premier Artist Heritage Club with a 20x8 bass drum, and the recent Yamaha Stage Custom Hip also has a bass drum in this size. Our little Roomer here even has a depth of only 7 inches. That's less than some snare drums. In general, the design of marching drums is utilized here. Due to the flat shell, the heads vibrate more with each other, which generates an impressive amount of bass, at least as long as you play the drum with an unported resonant head and take the beater out of the head. Dixon builds the little Roomer from mahogany, but I think it's more like Philippine Luan wood. The shells are 9-ply and 7.5mm thick. Besides the mentioned bass drum, the set includes a tom in 10x7 and a 13x10 floor tom, as well as a rather unusual 10x3.5 piccolo snare. But that's not all. As a bonus, there's also a 6-inch tambourine with a rubberized ring on top. While the floor tom is set up in the classic way with rather short legs, the other 3 drums can be attached flexible with brackets. So you don't necessarily need a snare stand for the snare. The tambourine can also be attached to the hi-hat, etc. The round edges with a very wide head contact surface, which almost look like vintage drums, are eye-catching. The shells have a natural satin finish on the outside, and the kit is also available in 3 other colors. Overall, the workmanship is okay, apart from some minor imperfections. The hoops on the bass drum, for example, are quite rough, but you only notice this when you move your hand over them. And it seems that the plastic covering of some of the screws in the shell was forgotten during the assembling process. Also, the claws of the bass drum grip directly onto the wooden hoop. So, it's more of a real street instrument and not a collector's item. The fittings are solid overall, but also rather simple. All drums have these brackets with a rather narrow diameter, as we know them from cowbells and other percussion instruments. And the angled legs of the bass drum are also not particularly adjustable in height. The triple flame steel hoops are even and all screws run smoothly, and the lugs also appear to be solid and durable. However, if you compare it with the fittings on the Yamaha Stage Custom Hip mentioned earlier, the Dixon can't keep up. What's also a bit curious, instead of a normal single tom holder for the small tom, there's only this pipe style rod included, at least in our package, to which you then screw a corresponding clamp style holder. The little Roomer is available in 3 configurations. As a shell set only, as a shell set with backs, which is the one I have here, and as a shell set with backs and 3 stands, so 2 cymbal stands and a hi-hat stand. Important, only the last version includes the 2 clamps for the small tom and the snare. If you already own some lightweight hardware like I do, the version with the backs is certainly the most practical. The 4 small drums are stacked in one bag with dividers in it. This also has a backpack system, while the bass drum has its own bag that also fits your cymbals. The third flat bag can be used to carry your stands, and when unfolded can also be used as a drum rug. However, I have not tried this out. There's also the Dixon drummer pouch included, which is a small bag with tuning keys and some spare parts in it, in which you can also store your phone while drumming, and the drummer pouch can be hooked onto the floor tom. So as you can see, I used 2 of my Tama clamps to attach the small tom and the tambourine, and the snare sits on a side snare stand, which is also from my personal Tama arsenal. There's no specific manufacturer information on the heads, they just feature the Dixon logo. The toms and bass drum have pre-damped and at least on the toms double-ply pinstripe style heads, while the resonant heads are single-ply and clear. And the resonant head of the bass drum has a vintage look and no integrated damping ring. The snare is equipped with a single-ply coated standard batter head. And the simple snare throw-off is an old classic, as are the piccolo lugs that have been familiar with Dixon for many years. Okay, now let's start with the sound files. The toms were already tuned quite low out of the box, and I tuned the snare quite high, and the bass drum is only slightly muffled on the outside of the batter head. So for the second take, I have put some mole tone in the bass drum and placed a felt strip in front of the resonant head, and this makes the drum sound much more defined. Okay, finally a third take. This time I fitted the toms and snare with Remo coated ambassadors, and you can hear that the sustain of the toms is longer and the snare in particularly benefits from the branded head. I also tuned the bass drum a little lower. And since the sound with the 10-inch snare is cool but perhaps a bit limited in the long run, I also took my beloved Rogers Luxor from the 1960s out of the shelf. This also gives you an impression of how the set sounds with a normal sized snare. Okay, here's my conclusion. Even if there are a few things to complain about on some of the components, the Little Roomer is one of the best sounding compact sets I've had in this room here. The small snare is funky and crisp, the toms sound fat and full with the factory heads. What I found most impressive, however, is what you can get out of the shallow bass drum. Overall, the set has a very round and warm sound, but still has a nice presence. However, the 10-inch snare is rather special and not so versatile as larger snares that you can find with other compact kits. The backs that you can get with it are a practical solution, but hey Dixon, why don't you include a decent single tom holder? The legs of the floor tom could also be a whole lot longer for my taste. So to sum it up, the Little Roomer should be ideal for small stages, spontaneous jams or practice rooms where space is an issue. It's a lot of fun to play and to produce creative sounds with it. In terms of price, it's reasonably moderate at just under 700 for the basic configuration, but it's not a super bargain either. In my opinion, the good sound makes up for some weaknesses in the features. So, what's your opinion on it? Write it in the comments. That's it for today. If you liked the video, feel free to hit the like button, leave me a comment, and if you're interested in the Dixon Little Roomer, you can find the purchase links in the video description down below. I hope to see you next time. Until then, bye!